There's something that I always laugh at in the scriptures when the word grumble is used, right? In the first reading, that's how it opens. They grumbled at Moses and Aaron. Scriptural grumbling is always entertaining to me. Not that I don't participate in myself, and maybe that's part of why I laugh. But don't miss the irony of what they're saying here, right? Oh my gosh, a little dramatic they are in this moment. Oh my gosh, would that we go back to the good old days of Egypt. Oh, when you were slaves? Right? Yeah, you had some food and you had your fill of bread if you want, but you were literally property and they killed you like chattel, right? Those are the good old days you're talking about, just to be clear. Yup. Okay, just checking. By the way, you get this amazing miracle. If you've read ahead in Exodus, what's their next comment just a chapter later? Well, you have homework now, don't you? I'll point you in the right direction. They literally say to Moses, we're sick of this bread. We're sick of this bread. Sound familiar? I don't know about you, but I can find myself in that same space. I laugh at them because it's our story. Do you understand that when I was a little kid, people said, that rained bread from heaven, and I wasn't really paying attention to the explanation, and so I kind of pictured in my head like pita bread just falling from the sky or something, kind of like an Easter egg hunt. They're coming out, to gather it up. But of course, what's described is something very different, and there's actually a natural explanation for both things. And I say this to students all the time, right, that birds in this particular piece of the peninsula peck at those trees. And so when the breeze comes across it, that sap comes out, and the wind pulls it up off the tree, and it flakes, and it's edible. This still happens today. This isn't new. And I tell you that not to burst the bubble of the miracle. I tell you that because for all space and time, God put in motion that when they needed it in that moment, it would be there. That's far more miraculous to me. I don't know about you. That's far more miraculous to me than, there you go, free bread. And the birds, same thing. They do these long flights across that peninsula. And when they land on the other side, they're so exhausted that to this day, they just collapse there on the ground until they can get enough strength to take their next flight. These are these two profound miracles that come to them. And the thing that I don't want us to miss is, how often do they happen? Daily. How important? Because the issue for the crowd in the gospel is the word zeteo in Greek. It says they were looking for him. They were looking for him. And that word is used a lot of times in John's gospel. But 10 of the times, the most time it's used, it refers to people trying to arrest or kill Jesus. They sought him out to arrest him. They looked for him to kill him. That word is most often used not for a good thing. And I bring that up only maybe partly as a recovering politician and an optimistic cynic, that maybe their motivations to find him were not so good. Because what's their first question to him? I think sometimes we loft up the story, and you can't miss the reality of this story. What's the first question? Yeah, when'd you get here? Or another way, how'd you get here? When and how is kind of what they're after. And I imagine Jesus said, I took the SS Nunya business, how I got here. Because really what they're trying to do is control him. They're trying to control him. You may say, you're being cynical. Well, here's why I think they're trying to control him. Because there's more and more evidence in this gospel story of them not listening to him. When'd you get here? We thought you were on the other side. When did you get here? Notice his answer to the question wasn't, 4:45, that's when I got here. He doesn't even answer their question. He answers the real question that they're asking, and he lays out for them what that they should be doing. But the next thing they ask him, of course, is, show us a sign. Show you a sign. This is John chapter 6, right? This is all the Eucharistic theology, 24 to 35. Just back yourself up 20 verses before the feeding that happened last weekend for us. How did that story start? It said they showed up because they had heard about the signs of him healing the sick. And at the end of the story, what do? They say, this sign's so amazing. They go to try to make him king. Right there in that moment, they try to force him to become something he's not. these are all actions of people trying to stay in control, trying to make him who they want him to be. And I'm not saying they're terrible people. They're just like us. I think what motivates them for all of that is just fear, right? We are all looking for some sense of security, some sense of that it's going to be okay. And so when you see this guy doing miraculous things, you go, well, we got to make that guy the boss. And he says, slow down, partner. No, that is not at all what I'm talking about here. The signs, all these signs should always be pointing us to something greater. Nobody goes up to a stop sign and just continues to follow the sign, right? It still says stop. Why have you ever left a stop sign? It still says stop. We should all still be sitting somewhere else. Except to say that stop sign is telling us about something else in the end, right? You need to stop because the other people aren't. And if you don't, well, there could be an accident. But after you stop, you go. Thank God. All right? For me, it always comes back to traffic. I'm sorry, it just does. Traffic and shaving, right? Those are the two things that is. But the traffic is about control. We're trying to control it. And we're not going to control Jesus. All the signs that happen, they should be pointing us to something greater. The feeding the 5,000. You take all of Jesus' miracles, bring them up together in one big ball, and they don't amount to very much at all. But they don't, do they? They're all very temporal. They're all very much in time. Fed the 5,000, they were hungry just a few hours later. Indeed, they're obnoxious just a few verses later. They're obnoxious. Show us another sign. What are you talking about? You just had 20 verses ago. Because it doesn't have anything to do with the sign. They're still just trying to get him to do what it is they want him to do. As I said, they're not bad people. They're just afraid. They're afraid of what Rome is doing to them in oppression. They're afraid of all the fights they see within their own religion. And Jesus is saying, no, you're missing it. The miracle in Exodus is the daily bread, is the daily feeding. It's the surrendering of trying to control everything. You and I are ultimately not in control. That's one of the great 5 truths. I mention these 5 truths from time to time, and I keep telling you, if you want to hear all 5, you got to pay for the parish mission, so you can't have them for free. But I'll give you this one for free as number 4, which is you're not in control. We're not in control. We can control some things, and we do. And it's for the betterment, for the most part, of other people. Controlling stop at a stop sign, right? It can be something silly. But because we can control some things, we start to assume that we can control many things, and then we start to assume that we should control many things. And that's always going to be disastrous for us. Because here's Jesus in the end. The great sign this is all pointing to is his sacrifice. The great sign of all of his miracles is the great sacrifice. He rose Lazarus from the dead. Great sign. But in the end, Lazarus died just 4 months later from a runaway camel. Hit him, knocked him down, killed. Tragic story. You've never heard it before. But nope. We don't know what happened to Lazarus, but we do know is he died a second time. All the signs, all the power, all the miracles, just pointing us back to sacrifice, self-sacrifice in the end. That Jesus lays down his life for those who didn't deserve it, but just out of love he does it. And then no surprise that he connects all the power and sign around bread and makes that the sacrament that you and I are here for today. To fill our bellies, if you will, as we get out of this story. That's what he says to him when they say, work a sign. He goes, you're just here because you got fed. That's cute. But what this is really about is something much bigger than that. It's about a bread that doesn't perish. It's about a call to a way of life that will literally change the world. We can make it really small if we want, and we can try to control it, but we don't. And we're kidding ourselves when we do. The real beautiful witness to all that sign is to surrender, to let God be God, and let God work powerfully in our lives. I'm as bad at that as anybody. I can intellectually assent to that every day, and then later in the day just be pulling all the levers trying to control it. And I have to just keep letting it go. I have to keep physically letting things go and letting God be God. So as we prepare to receive him in this Eucharist, let that sign, his presence in this bread and wine, made his flesh and blood, literally invade all of our senses. That we will touch it and we will taste it and we will smell it. We will experience it with every fiber of our being. And what is it that we're experiencing? Sacrifice. Sacrifice. A body broken for us, blood poured out for us, so that we would go and do the same for a desperate and weary world that needs to know his love and his peace and his mercy. That's the invitation. There's a part of us that goes, I get it, but I'd rather control it. To which Jesus just waits patiently on the cross and says, hopefully you tire from banging your head against that wall, because the Son of God said, I just showed you, it's not about control. It's about a surrender. It's about a sacrifice. And so the invitation made to us every day for our daily bread, we're going to pray it in just a few minutes, right? Give us this day our annual bread and put it in a 401k so I never have to think about it again. It will simply distribute every year, annually, exactly what I need. Maybe I should write that prayer. I think most of us pray it at some level, right? And just, we laugh at it. It's not something to get upset about. It's just something to go, that's kind of who we are. And that's the very nature that Jesus died for within us. So as I often ask us to do, let's just stop for a minute, close our eyes, and contemplate what we're about to receive in this Eucharist. Not just some magical transformation of bread becoming body, but the very love of God that's revealing to us the mystery of the universe. If we will give up our life for his sake, nobody can take it from us. May God be praised.